Hi friends, John Laspina here, your carnivore teacher. This is a video of what I eat in a week. Now, each day I only eat 2 meals a day. The first one I call my lunch because it's around lunchtime, around 11 to 12 o'clock. And my second meal of the day I call dinner, and that is around 6:15 to 6:30, sometimes 6:45 at night. I don't eat snacks in between. I don't eat what some people call a breakfast. My breaking of my fast is my first meal of the day, which is lunch. So we're going to start out with Sunday's lunch. And here you see in this picture the raw ingredients: pasture-raised eggs, sockeye salmon, wild sockeye salmon. In that little dish there is rendered butter that I captured when I made beef ribs. And I put the beef ribs on the grill in one of the stages and I smothered in butter. It all melts. It mixes with the fat from the beef ribs, and then I collect it and put it in this dish and put it in the refrigerator. I use that special butter. It has amazing flavor when I cook things. And then you see their Parmesan cheese there. And in the glass bowl next to the rendered butter is leftover cut up ribeye steak from the night before. And then that's my cast iron skillet. So these are the raw ingredients. And this is the finished product on my Fiestaware plate. There's my sockeye salmon. I love the skin. I cooked it in butter. And then I have my meat and my eggs, and I let my runny egg yolks, I like my eggs over light kind of, so that when I poke them, as you could see, the egg yolks run over the meat. And then I salt to taste. So that's my first meal of the day on Sunday. Sunday dinner, I forgot to take a picture of the whole tray, but I took some chicken wings, I melted butter and some bacon fat, took a paintbrush, painted the outside of both sides, sprinkled Redmond real salt on top, a little bit of oregano. I think I put a little bit of oregano on there, dried oregano, to give it a little flavor. And this is the finished product when it comes off the grill. Delicious chicken wings. I eat those until I'm full. Lots of fatty meat. I eat the skin, I eat the fat, everything. Absolutely delicious. For Monday lunch, I made a bone broth soup. And as you can see here, I have 4 pastured eggs as my raw ingredients. I have some ground beef. I have some wild-caught sockeye salmon. There's my pasture-raised butter, my Redmond real salt. I've got my special butter that I made. And in the jar there is my bone broth that I made when I collect all of my bones. I put them in a bag, I put the bag in the freezer, and then when it's time to make bone broth soup, I make a whole bunch of jars in the crock pot. It takes 12 hours. Did a video on that, you can check that out. I just pour some of that bone broth into my pot. I let the bone broth get hot and cook the eggs. I cook the salmon and the ground beef in a cast iron skillet, but I half cook it, because when I put that into the hot bone broth, it finishes cooking the salmon and finishes cooking the eggs. I add some delicious butter and my special butter and salt to taste. The picture doesn't do it justice. It kind of looks like slop, but this is my bone broth soup. It's absolutely delicious. Oh my gosh. And I invented this soup by just combining things. Monday dinner, I made on the grill. We have a Traeger grill that I slow smoke or fast cook, depending on the temperature I put it on. In this case, it was faster. I put it at 450 degrees. And these are riblets. Absolutely delicious. Tender. I gnaw down the bones. The bones go in the bone bag to make future bone broth. Delicious. That's Monday dinner. All right, let's do Tuesday lunch. I have my 4 pasture-raised eggs. I have my special butter that I rendered, and I have some regular pasture-raised butter, and then I have some goat cheese. That goat cheese gives everything a nice, tangy flavor. It's so delicious. I use about a half a tablespoon. I just scoop it. I put it in the middle of that blue plate, and I put the hot, leftover cooked ground beef and meat from the night before that you see in that cast iron pan. I put it right on top of the goat cheese, and the goat cheese melts into the meat. And then I have 5 wild-caught shrimp that I cook in bacon grease in the same pan. And then I also use Redmond real salt. I mix it all together, and it's a delicious, delicious meal. Every time I make eggs, I don't usually make an omelet. I cook them the way they are in the pan in butter, and I like to flip them over easy, so that they don't cook. The white cooks and solid, but the yolks are runny when you poke into them. I love a runny yolk. Here is part of the finished product. I'm cooking my eggs, as you can see, in my butter. I'm ready to flip them at that point. And there's my pan with my cooked shrimp. I cut the shrimp up into little pieces. You can see the goat cheese kind of mixed into the meat there. You put that all together. It's so satisfying. It's so filling and delicious. It's protein and fatty acids, vitamins and minerals. And the only carbohydrates are the 1 or 2 carbs in the eggs. Delicious. Tuesday dinner, porterhouse steak. This is the porterhouse uncooked, sitting on my brining rack. What I do is I wrap it in paper towels to get all the moisture off. And then I have this device that I've shown in another video. It pokes a lot of holes in it. And then I just rub Redmond real salt on both sides. I put that on that brining rack in my refrigerator on top of these little cups so that the air can circulate under and around and over. And it's in there for about 12 to 14 hours. And then I take that and I put that on my Traeger grill and I cook it to rare to medium rare, and it's absolutely phenomenal. The smaller part is kind of like the filet mignon part, and the other part is pretty tender too, but not as tender. Excellent flavor. And there's my finished cooked porterhouse steak Tuesday dinner. Absolutely delicious. I put butter on it and Redmond real salt and slice it and go to town. Very filling. I eat all the fat. I love to gnaw around the bone. I love a steak with a bone in. And then where does that bone go? Goes in my bone bag. Fill that bag up for future bone broth. Wednesday lunch, we're doing another bone broth soup, and I'm showing you some of the same things. This time, I'm going to eat, and I'm not cooking this. I'm eating it separately with my bone broth. You can see my sardines that come in a can. They don't say boneless and skinless, which means the bones are in and the skin is on, and it's packed in water. And I got this from Wild Planet at our local grocery store. I don't throw this in the soup because I don't want to heat it up, because the omega-3 fatty acids are fragile. It's already okay to eat the way it is, so I just eat that cold right out of the can. And then I have my bone broth soup. There's my bone broth. There's my Redmond real salt. There's my, in the cup there, the little glass cup, you see leftover cut up meat from the night before and some ground beef that I'm going to cook. There's my pan and my butter, and you see a little wedge of Parmesan cheese. I slice a little bit of that and put that in there and make my bone broth. Oh, I forgot that I put 3 eggs in there. Bone broth soup for Wednesday's lunch. Here's the Wednesday finished product. Again, this does not look exciting, doesn't it? It looks kind of like mush. It's so good, though. This is so delicious. I cannot tell you how amazingly filling and satisfying bone broth soup with eggs and meat and fish are. The fish gives it good flavor, believe it or not. Wednesday for dinner. This looks like a glob of Play-Doh, I know, but this is a picanha with the fat cap on the top. That's why you can't see the meat. You can kind of see it there on the top left. And we're putting the thermometer in, the permanent thermometer in the deepest part. And as you can see by that thermometer, it's only 61.5 degrees right now. It's been sitting at room temperature for about an hour or two, and the inside is 61 degrees. So we're going to smoke this on the Traeger grill. I'm going to put it on around 200, 205 degrees and just watch the thermometer until it reaches about 118 to 119 degrees, which is the way I like it, which is between rare and medium rare. Some people like to cook it a little longer. I don't do anything to it. I just put it in just like this. Let's take a look at the next picture of it. After it's been cooked and smoked, it usually takes about 2 hours, an hour and a half to reach 118 degrees. This is the picanha. As you can see from the thermometer, it's at 119 degrees right now. We're letting it sit. We're letting it rest until it reaches about 123, 124. It continues to cook. You don't cut into a steak this big right when you take it off the grill. Otherwise, all the juices are going to run out. So you let it sit and stare at the thermometer until it raises, usually about 10 minutes, sometimes 15 minutes. So we cut into this. You'll see in the next picture. Here's the picanha as we're cutting against the grain. Some of the fluid is running out, but not a lot, actually. And this is exactly how we like it, between rare and medium rare. Absolutely phenomenally delicious. Oh my gosh, it's so good. I cut this, a little piece of fat with a big piece of meat in each bite. I rub butter on it, more butter on top, and it melts in your mouth. And the smoky flavor, because I smoked it on our Traeger grill. It gives it that, it almost tastes like ham on the outside. It's smoky. And then we have leftovers to cut up and to put into the next day's lunch, each for a couple of days, and have for dinner also as leftovers. So good. Thursday lunch, I'm cooking 4 pasture-raised eggs. The bowl is leftover picanha from the night before, cut up. And then I have in my cast iron skillet, I'm going to cook some ground beef in butter. I've got my goat cheese again, love it. I'm going to have my sardines in the can. Again, I'm not cooking them, I'm just eating them right out of the can. They have bones, they have skin, they're packed in water. I use pasture-raised butter, and I salt to taste with Redmond real salt. Absolutely delicious. Let's take a look at the finished product. This is my Thursday lunch. You see my sardines, you see my egg, the egg yolk mixed in. You see all the fat coming off. Underneath that you can't see is my goat cheese. And look at my runny egg yolks ready to come out. This is so satisfying. It's so delicious. It's so nutritious. I don't want a snack between lunch and dinner when I'm finished with all of this. When I finish my meal and I'm getting up to go back to the kitchen to rinse the plate and put it in the dishwasher, I keep saying every time, that was so good. And I'm full, I'm satiated. For dinner on Thursday, it's ribeye night. And so I'm cooking 2 ribeyes here. This is what they look like when I brine them. Same thing, take the moisture off with the paper towel, coat it with salt after I poked a bunch of holes, put it on the brining rack, put it in the refrigerator for 14 to 18 hours, take it out, and then I cook it on our Traeger grill on high at about 450, like a regular grill. Why do I brine? You can see the little holes there that I used. I brine it because it takes the moisture out and the delicious flavor concentrates. That's what brining does. It's delicious. So there's my, look at it. I'm salivating looking at this amazing ribeye steak. Same steak, only it has been smoked on the Traeger. And what I did is I have a torch. I take my torch and I torch the outside because Traeger grills are not direct over the flame. So I torch both sides of that delicious ribeye, as you can see, and then I rub more butter on it, salt to taste. I cut into that bad boy and I eat everything on the plate. All the fat, all the meat, any gristle, chew it up. Why am I eating the gristle? It's collagen. Why am I eating the fat? It's nutritious, it's energy. And I'm eating all the meat and the protein. And it satisfies me. It really does. Friday, it's back to bone broth. So what I've been doing, and I don't do this all the time, but I'll do a soup, then I'll do a meal. I'll do a soup, I'll do a meal for my lunch. I want to use the bone broth up. So it's bone broth soup lunch day again. There's my salmon and my ground beef that I'm going to be cooking in the cast iron skillet. There are my 4 pasture-raised eggs. In the bowl, you see some pork rinds. I put some pork rinds in there because I like to mix my pork rinds. That's how I eat my pork rinds, with my meal. I don't eat them as a snack anymore because I overeat them. There's my pasture-raised butter. Now what I do is I partially cook the ground beef and I partially cook the salmon, and then I put it in that glass bowl. And then when the bone broth soup has thoroughly cooked the eggs, I put the partially cooked salmon and ground beef into the bone broth soup, and it finishes cooking it. And I put the butter in the soup, salt to taste, and let's take a look at the finished product again. This time I decided to show you what it looks like in the pot, simmering, cooking, before I poured it into the bowl. It's so good. Friday dinner, another ribeye. Delicious, amazing ribeye. Poke the holes, sprinkled with salt, dried it out on the brining rack, 14 to 18 hours, smoked it on the Traeger grill, really cooked it at 450. And there it is. It's the same picture I used from the night before, but it's the same meal as the night before, basically. It's a delicious ribeye steak. Sometimes I do 2 in a row. Yum, yum. We're doing bone broth soup again for Saturday lunch. And I have my salmon, I have my butter, I have my eggs, I have my bone broth, and I have different cuts of meat. This is leftover ribeye steak that I cut up. And I'm making bone broth soup. And there's my bone broth soup for Saturday lunch. It's so filling. Bone broth is extremely healthy for our intestines, our guts. So much collagen and so much calcium and protein, the bone broth, and all the other goodies that I put in there. And it's just so delicious. It really is. It fills you up. Saturday dinner is leftovers. This is leftover picanha, leftover sausage that I had from another meal that I didn't show you. Those are bratwursts, really, really clean. And just had some delicious leftovers because you use everything. If I'm not using it in the bone broth soup for the next day's lunch, I'm having leftovers for dinner the next day. Yum. So here's an extra picture I wanted to show you of one of my lunches that I was making. Just some extra pictures. Another extra picture of one of my lunches. And that is what I eat for a week, but not every week. It can change. If I'm out, I'm going to get a hamburger and tell the waiter, the server, it has to not be cooked in seed oil, or I'm going to get a steak on the menu. If I'm out for dinner, I'm going to talk to the waiter, the server, and say I cannot have seed oils. Please cook it in a separate pan. The guy comes out and asks me more questions. I feel like I'm fairly safe. I can control the carbohydrates and sugars and starches I put in my body by choosing not to put them in my mouth, but I cannot control what they're doing behind the door in the kitchen. That's why I have to have that seed oil conversation with them. This is a week at home. I don't eat out that much. I really don't. The only times I eat out are when people ask me to go to lunch or there's a dinner celebration and we're going to somebody's birthday dinner. I don't eat out at restaurants really that much anymore. I make everything at home. The foods I showed you are not that expensive, although I did show a lot of steaks. It doesn't have to be. Some of the meals that I didn't show you, I make hamburgers. Hamburgers on the grill, just ground beef. Sometimes I just throw a bunch of ground beef in the pan for dinner and just crack the eggs and mix them all up with the spatula and sprinkle some salt and just eat it that way, like a big old scrambled eggs and leftover meat. There's many meals I did not show you, but this is what I ate in a week. I filmed it from Sunday to Saturday on my phone and decided to put it all together and make this video for you, what the carnivore teacher eats in a week. It's different. Weeks are different from other weeks, but that's a good example of what I eat. No snacking in between. A snack is always an emotional event. If I get an urge for something sweet or something as a snack between lunch and dinner, I need to ask myself, why am I getting this urge? Because I just had this gigantic lunch that has filled me up at 12 o'clock. It's now 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Why am I getting this craving? And actually, you can identify an emotion. I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, something. And, my past, I would always go to snacks to quell that emotional event. I read a book, I pick up my guitar, my ukulele, my cello, I learn a new language, I do something instead of go reach for a bunch of snacks, which I don't have in the kitchen anyway. So it's hard to get at snacks if you don't have them in the kitchen. All right, but what I had been doing was reach for the pork rinds. And I'd have pork rinds at 3 o'clock in the afternoon every day. So I stopped that and I put the pork rinds in the soup instead. And the bag lasts longer and I'm not overeating the pork rinds. After dinner, I'm not really hungry and I don't have an urge to snack. I used to, but the snacking urge never shows up till the minute I go to bed. I'm lucky about that. But if that does happen to you, same thing. You're not really hungry if you had a protein fat-filled dinner. Just don't eat any snacks. Get yourself busy doing something else, and that urge usually lasts 5 or 6 minutes and it goes away if you just push past the urge. Seriously. If you like this video, click the thumbs up. Please subscribe to my channel if you're interested and share this video with friends and family if you'd like to. And I hope I see you in my other videos. Thank you for coming, and remember, if you eat correctly, you will feel fantastic. You will feel wonderful, and you'll be weight optimized. The carnivore diet is the proper human diet. Have a good day, everybody.